The Town of Carlisle Board of Selectmen meeting of Tuesday, October 8th at 7 o'clock. And I will read the agenda. At 7 p.m. we'll have community input. 7:05 Finance Director appointment. At 7:15 Chief Sorrows's Fire Department update. At 7:45 review, approve the Smart Pay-As-You-Throw Evaluation and Implementation Study. At 8:15 discuss the results of the special town meeting. At 8:30, Town Government Organization Policy and Bylaw Review, Policy Number 8, Policy 12, and the Insurance Advisory Committee. At 9, Town Administrator's Report. 9:15, the Liaison Reports. 9:25, the minutes. And at 9:30, hopefully, adjournment. If you guys don't get carried away with the liaison
That's a new record.
reports. Great. So this is the time where I ask if there's any community input. And
Guys, you got nothing? Really?
got nothing
Come on, now's your
for us.
time to throw your shot at Nathan. Next time.
yeah, I think next time would be better. Yeah, let them have a chance to prepare, you know, come on.
Yeah.
All right, so
Gotta
then we're gonna
sting.
move right along to our 7:05 Finance Director appointment, and I'd like to invite Ms. Kane to
Come
join us
forward,
at
I
the
guess.
table. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Tim, you wanna lead off?
Okay, well, you'll recall that we advertised this position in the summer, and got a handful of applications, I would say, but Kim's kind of stood out among most of them, because she has a wealth of experience. The group that I put together for the interviews was Kate, Scott Triola from FinCom, and Kevin Perkins from the Audit Committee. And we all agreed that we didn't need to go any further after we interviewed Kim. She has, 30 years' experience in the field, and as both a town accountant and as a treasurer collector, deputy treasurer collector, and has the governmental certification as an accountant and as a deputy collector. I think it's just a fortunate circumstance that she's looking to make a change of venue, or, move off island to the Boston area and to be closer to the family in Vermont. So we'll certainly take advantage of that. We need a break, so I think we'll take advantage of that, circumstance. I'll let Kate can speak for herself. The committee was very impressed with Kim, and what stood out for me was we have the same auditors as Edgartown, Clifton Larson Allen, and Dan Sullivan is the lead auditor. And what he said kind of stood out for me. He said, Priscilla and Kim are the two best accountants that I work with. And he got as excited as an auditor could get. The thought of putting them together in the same office. So I said, that's all I need. Dan's not given to hyperbole in the first place. So I think this is going to work out. Because he thought it would be a good pairing, and I think Priscilla and Kim know each other professionally, at least through the association, and I think that I'm very hopeful. I'm certain there's going to be a good working relationship between the two of them. As you know, Chief Fisher got the duty of having to go down to Edgartown to do the background check last week. And, he reported nothing remarkable, very clean background check. He interviewed a number of co-workers, friends, business associates, and so forth, and did a thorough review of her credit report, and we did a Corey check. We did every check we could do under the circumstances. And
Sorry that you're
all-
being
yeah.
tarred with somebody else's brush.
so, all very positive, and so Kim's here tonight. The board hopefully to appoint her as finance director, and we'll be off and running. She's got some things to do, like move to the Boston area and so forth, and give her notice, but
Well, I'm sure they know
with
it's
that,
coming, right?
well, I think, well, they do now, yeah,
John talked with that.
right. So,
They do that.
so with that, I suppose you want to hear from her rather than me, so.
Okay, well, if anybody have any questions, Nathan?
I have questions, but I don't know if you have something you want
Maybe
to.
you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I've actually was born and raised on the island, so it's very dear to me. And other than short periods of time, I've lived most of my life there and raised my family there. As Tim pointed out, my one grown son is now a middle school educator in Vermont, so this puts me closer to him that way. I've been looking for something at this phase of my life. I'm always, even Dale know, looking for a challenge or, something new, and it's the right time for me to make the move. But it had to be the right town and the right fit. And I really feel Carlisle has that for me, and I'm thrilled with, I met Kate, I met, Kevin and Scott. They were wonderful. I look forward to working with the finance committee. I'm thrilled to have, as an accountant too, I'm certified governmental accountant, I'm also certified in collection. It's great to work with, accountant that I know is just like me. So it's very exciting, and this feels like, somewhat to home to me. It's a beautiful town, the woods out back and that, but yet I have the city, and I don't have to mow a lawn, and so I'm really excited to come on board and bring you along and help with what I can, and work with all of you.
We're
I love
delighted to have
boats.
you.
So,
Go ahead.
so I mean, you kind of answered it a little bit, but, what particularly about Carlisle and is attractive?
Well, number one, I really wanted to settle in Boston. I wasn't going to go to, which I've had other opportunities to go to, like, say, Truro, Eastham, Lower Cape. I have a lot of friends, a lot of connections in the Boston area. My son went to school at Suffolk University way back. I worked at State Street Bank a long time ago, so I love the city. So I want, I want the apartment. I want to be busy, but I wanted to be in a town that fit with me in a area around that. I also love the finance director part of it, doing the budget and all that. Love treasure collectors, so it was kind of whatever fit right with me. I like the people. I've known Priscilla. It just, it really seemed like, good people, the right fit. A town that cares about, which obviously you do, which the Vineyard didn't do as well, in the sense of we have a lot of building, and I see that, and it changes things. So for you to have, narrowed it down where you only had 2-acre minimum, building lots and stuff, and you kind of kept the commercial part of it out, which we've done, somewhat on the Vineyard. We don't have McDonald's or, any big chains. It keeps that, quaintness and uniqueness with it. So, when I saw it come up and talking about the thing, it really appealed to me, and I thought, that's a town I would be happy, working in.
Okay. So one of the things, I think if I think about Edgartown and I think about Carlisle, I see a lot of similarities. One of the things that I see is pretty different is we don't have really any commercial income.
No.
And so how do you see that as a challenge in this particular role? And do you have any experience in that type of, you've had many, lots of different jobs. Have you had any experience with that?
No, well, with looking at it, I'm like, okay, well, it's gonna be hard to generate new revenues. I've got ideas on, you can't really have a meals tax or, things like that. You don't have, all those.
It would all fall in one
parking.
establishment.
It falls under. So it's actually basically, taxation, and all that. I think it's just smart planning. What I like to do is start really thinking ahead, getting a 5-year plan out there, and really, we talked about multi-stabilization funds, a different way, just really making the best use of the funds that you have and how we can project so that you're maybe not caught at a certain time having to do something that you have to do, borrowing or a capital exclusion for that you weren't really planning on. So, it's just, it's in not in the commercial part. I love that there's nothing commercial in here. So it's exciting for me.
Mhm.
I've
Okay.
already been reading through your financials and listening to your town meeting last night, so it's already getting me kind of excited about kind of going through and figuring out what I can do to help you with your financial plan.
Great. Could you tell me just a couple more questions, if I may? What do you like most about the job you have now?
Well, I always loved, I love to keep moving along. I always like to make things just work easier. It's like, don't do something that you have to do it twice on. So I've always been very advanced, and when I first took over as a town accountant, we were statutory. So I actually had to rewrite the whole chart of accounts from statutory to UMass accounting. At that same time, I reviewed all the different software, and I did a conversion from KVS to Munis, because we're a Munis country, and that just works with all your other colleagues and everybody, so you have somebody to call up and talk to. Just making everything efficient and flow, better. Sometimes people are afraid of new things and doing it, and I'm always the one like, let's get to the Munis conference and let's do this. And not saying everything is good to go too far ahead, but it saves a lot of time. Numbers stay correct if you're not moving them from 4 different places and things like that. I love teaching. I love mentoring. So if I can be the one to come in and help and move people along, that's what I really enjoy. I love solving problems, making things efficient, and that's just what I like to do. And I like to keep my mind going and learning and moving forward. So I guess that's
Okay, so I just have 2 more
2
questions.
more. I gotta talk.
So much for 9:30.
One word answer.
You can,
I have no questions, thank you. Other than start date, that's it.
so, in this role here in Carlisle, what would be new to you here? What would be a new thing that you would be learning in this role?
New in this role, probably be more with the, I've done a lot of work with the treasury and on that end of it, but I've always been more on the accountant end of it. I haven't actually been a treasurer. I've been the collector, finance, and done that. But with all the borrowing and all that, I've always sat in and done it, so I always have to make sure I'm on my side, not on the other side. So that's exciting on the other end to, instead of taking control of all the cash in the books, I'll have all the cash in the bank. I am a treasurer for the Ayrton Yacht Club too, so I deal a lot with the finances there too. So that whole treasurer piece is, in there too. I think it's really working with the finance department really closely, and really taking the budget from beginning to end to present to you for town meeting. That's exciting, and that I'm looking forward to doing.
Yeah, I just always feel when somebody's going into a new role, it's just important that there's new things there, that it's not just the same old.
No, it's nice, because again, and I'm an accountant, and Priscilla's a wonderful accountant, so that part of me, I have to put the accountant piece of me, which is nice, because if I was walking in town and I wasn't as comfortable with the town accountant, or felt like, ooh, I don't want to be like, well, now I'm putting my accountant hat on and doing that. I don't have to here, because Priscilla's a great accountant, so I can kind of enjoy, I love being an accountant, but I'm really excited about being the treasurer collector, and I loved doing collection, and, make sure we get that money all in, and so that's exciting to kind of go back to that.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to working with Priscilla. I think it's a great team. I think that's what's important.
You answered my second question already, my last question already, in that answer, so.
I have one for you. So I think a lot of because we're such a small town, what is really important, I think, is working as a team. And there's, in this building, there are a lot of different parts of the town government here. So I'm just curious, how do you, since you were in one place for quite a long time, how do you think about coming into a new position and sort of creating those relationships and building that team here?
I'm excited about it. I love people. I tend to talk too much. I have to. So I like to get to know people. I love to be a team. Sometimes when things look more singular to me, I have a harder time with that, and sometimes it's gone that way over the years. I haven't gone through, we only had 3 town administrators, so we've kind of stayed with a lot of the people for a while. We've had a huge amount of change with a lot of retirements. We had a larger generation, so I've had, in the last year or so, I've had a new town administrator, a new police chief, a new fire chief, a new town clerk. So I've become a lot of the senior person with some of them. So you know, our town clerk was newer, it's like, you know, help me after the town meeting, I need this, you know, step in, and, you know, our police chief, you know, I need, you know, help with this, I'm getting to know, and then he lost his assistant, so we're losing our counseling. We've had, like you, a lot of, you know, changeover, so in the last 3 years, I've had to have a lot of new people I've had to take under my wing, and my wings are getting like this, I'm like, okay, I have to let you go and fly, now there's a new one here. You know, and teaching them the munis, or, you know, helping them to get together, and, you know, working as a, you know, a team, you know, with everybody, so that the left hand knows what the right hand's, you know, doing, and we're all on the same page, so I would love to be a team player, so. I hope-
Is Edgartown a town administrator or a town manager?
Town administrator.
Town administrator, okay. How do you deal with cold? Because unless they've moved the person, this desk is sitting in the coldest spot of town hall.
Actually, I deal with cold better than I deal with hot.
Okay.
We actually, at one point, my office is on the first floor. It's funny, because I had the original office, and we, when I was in the collectors, and then I moved to the accountants, and then ended up taking it back again as we shifted around. And they had wanted at one point, because the accountant isn't really, you know, public, you're dealing just more with the department heads, of going to the third floor and moving the Selectmen's office down. And I went up there a few times while we were doing some of the changeover and different times, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't work up here, it's too hot. And that's the biggest complaint on the third floor, is anybody up there, you know, we're downstairs in coats, and they're, you know, and like almost want to be in a tank top or something. So,
Of course,
no.
you haven't heard that I
That's it.
was thinking about taking this building and shaking it like this and seeing where everybody landed. And so, she may be sitting back there, who knows, maybe we'll be
I'll put
planning
a,
different
you
spots
know,
for
we,
people.
I have a cold, because we're on cement too. With my assistant in our room, the heat was on the top, and it doesn't blow out right. So to keep them cooler upstairs, they turn the heat off, or they have AC on when we're doing it, so we're cold downstairs. So, put a little space heater under, as long as my feet are warm.
The heat battle.
Yes.
It's always been, you know, I've done with different age levels, you have different people, somebody's hot, somebody's cold. I'll figure it out. I'm a very old wardrobe.
Alan?
I've always characterized the town here as always astonished by a town that's run by volunteers. We have a relatively small staff. We have, I don't know how many boards and committees, I think 44 or 55. I think we're each a liaison.
50.
We're each a liaison to
Yeah,
11 of
10
them, I
or
think.
11,
So
yeah.
there's a lot. Is Edgartown a similar kind of a
Well,
setup?
we have a volunteer fire department, and we have a lot of different committees, like we have a historic committee, so that's, you know, you have the whole committee on that, that's gotta be appointed in, and you have planning board, zoning. We have a lot of different volunteers down at the Council on Aging and stuff like that. But yeah, we're still a volunteer fire department, and we pay like paramedics and, you know, things like that. So, yeah, I'm used to a town like that. It hasn't been that long since we actually have a paid, you know, fire chief, you know, for a long time. It was just, you know, when the whistle blew, almost everybody worked within a few mile radius.
We've had one for almost a year.
Almost a year, you're a little bit ahead.
About 6 months.
But that's the thing, is things grow, and then regulations, and then you've got to have your firefighters, you know, before, when you're, also too, when you're volunteering, you know, people are doing it at their own time, so when you're doing firefighting courses, you can't make that mandatory. And now there's so much mandatory with your different fire departments of different, you know, levels that they have to have as a first responder and things like that. So I think that's what's you're starting to see that. And with the ambulances now, we do have, they can't be volunteer, you have to have, especially in the summertime, with us paid paramedics and things like that. But there still is a whole other, you know, staff. Ambulance is pretty much not volunteer anymore, but the fire department is, you have your, you know, paid chief and a few of them, and then the rest. But it's amazing, when you get a town like that, everybody comes out when there's, you know, the big, you know, storm or the fire or whatever. And we have to deal with that a lot with hurricanes and storms, so you have a lot of, you know, the firemen are down there all volunteer cooking for anybody out there who's, you know, driving trucks to plow, or, you know, hauling boats, or, you know, and then the animal officer lives on the way, so she's baking brownies for somebody that they stop by, you know. That's what a small
Ryan?
town's like.
Yeah, yeah. Empty-handed.
No, and even my son, which I love, is he grew up with, my ex-husband was a fireman, as was my grandfather, as was my uncle, and so we had generations on the fire department. And from a little boy, he would do radio checks, like I see you, your son's coming into town meeting things. He would do radio checks, with them, and every Sunday go ride by with a, truck. And then on Halloween or Christmas, he'd be stuffing the stockings with, the nuts and the orange and, a candy cane. And then the shut-ins and stuff, the fire truck would stop and out he'd run and he'd take it to the thing and come back. And, it's so, you always learn with that as you always get back, especially to your elders and stuff like that, so.
You guys need to step up your game.
You have no idea what we've been up to. That's all I have. Thank you.
Luke,
No.
besides the starting date?
Yeah, other than
Yes.
start date, no? Estimated start date, right?
I think the first week of November.
I think,
Talking
yeah,
about
that's
that,
what we,
Just enough time, because if I give my
Yeah.
notice, it'll be the 23rd, and I have to move into a unfinished apartment. I'm signing a lease and finishing up everything tomorrow, and then packing up my house so that I can get out of there and rent and get my caretaker and all the things like that. So ideally, I wanted like 2 weeks, so I think it works out to be like 10 days or something. If I can get in, and between Boston, I know there's 2 important meetings, which for myself, I'd like to get to on the 28th and the 30th. So I'd like to try and be at those, and if I just come in for those and work something else out.
yeah, that
With
would be
that,
ideal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stay at my house tonight.
Yes. Thank you.
I got an extra bedroom.
She has a nice
We'll
house.
put you
There's a-
Yeah.
Put the kids back out to the plant.
That's the main thing, just getting up there.
That's right.
And once they do, I want to get, kind of have a place and settle. That's why, after I left here on the 11th, I went and started really looking, because I have places, I'm in Boston, I could see it, but I didn't want to be trying to do that and then getting into a job and then shifting, trying to, move everything. I'd kind of like that part settled and to be here, but thank you.
And so you've been working on a contract?
Yes, yeah.
Do we have that?
Oh, no, so we don't, not a contract, not a formal contract.
Okay.
Just an agreement on terms of employment,
Okay.
salary,
So
so
that's what
forth,
this
yeah.
motion is,
So are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we,
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Kimberly Kane of Edgartown, Massachusetts as Finance Director, Treasurer Collector, subject to a background and credit check and successful negotiations as to salary and terms of employment.
Second?
Any further discussion?
I just hope you plan to stay for a long time.
Well, if my past record's any indication.
Yeah, good track record.
Plan
All
on it.
those in favor?
Aye.
I believe that was unanimous.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
we're
you.
excited to
I
have
a
you.
list of things
Thank
ready.
you.
Yeah.
I know, it takes
Yeah.
this long for you to do.
Stack.
Thank you. I look forward to.
That's why you wanted to spend a night at your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that.
No.
so, what's the process from here on this?
So, yeah, finalizing the
Yeah.
contract and
but, yeah,
So the
terms of
next
employment
meeting,
and
we'll
that.
see what the contract and the salary is and everything, or?
Right, well, you can authorize me to finalize it in the interim of,
Yeah, but we have no idea what it is.
Have you
can-
discussed a range?
we've discussed it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can discuss it offline with the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Get right down to business.
Chief Saros, why don't you join us? Yeah. Thank you for your memo.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. We're here to talk about my trip to Japan and Christine.
Also, thank you for the,
Yes, I mean, I can go more in depth or less in depth. I just thought something would get you, so we all kind of on the same page. I mean, that's a pretty significant source of income for the town. I mean, outside of taxes, it's one of our bigger sources of income. And no, we do not get $50 a ride, which is what your policy was.
Yeah,
What are we talking about?
the
The
ambulance.
ambulance.
ambulance
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
policy.
Yeah.
So we'll take that up at another time, but
Sure, but I just
Yeah.
wanted you to,
Thank you for having
last
me.
time I was here, you mentioned
We
that
did
it'd be
ask.
good to.
Okay. Well, would you like to give us a little
Okay.
presentation? I mean, I know you've written it
That-
down,
that's-
but we
that's
are,
fine, yep.
there's a lot of people
Right.
who are watching who haven't heard.
So, well, I guess I can.
Can I just start off just a little bit as the liaison?
Sure.
So as you may, as you remember, when we hired Brian, Brian and I have met a few times. He's been really, really great at communicating with all the firefighters with almost weekly updates, and he's been BCCing me on those. What we asked him to focus on as the new fire chief was trying to get more firefighters on staff and really, really working on succession planning and ensuring that the training was in place and that there was a clear progression that people could go through. I think those were really the two things that we really focused on. And then I kind of threw at the very end, and we all threw at the very end, oh, now you have to find a place for a second ambulance because it makes sense to keep the second ambulance, and so that's why you see things outside now. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage as, that's what we really wanted him to focus on, and now I'll just let.
Yep. So, yeah, a lot's happening down there, and folks, including people who are watching, are welcome when they see the fire station open and us down there doing things. Just come and see what we're up to. One of the things that we track very closely and carefully is our coverage. It's something that we can do. A lot of departments can't do it to the level we do in terms of volunteer or call departments. We're bending the curve on that. We're not where we need to be, but it's, obviously, we're working in that regard. If there wasn't a challenge, then what fun would the job be? We do have an aging membership. We've hired 5 people. We have another person who's in the process. One of the things with part of the hiring and part of what we've done is we've built a training and progression infrastructure. And we have that in place. And so we have, right now we have 7 employees who are getting their EMT certification, which will make a very large difference. And we have this big focus on training and promotion that we're doing. So I have the EMT classes, ladder operators. We've, for a number of years, had issues staffing our ladder. Last time we had a fire, I'm the one who brought it to the fire. So often the officers end up bringing the ladder. We have that going, driver training. We have very large trucks, bigger trucks than you see in other towns for a good reason, but that means we have a very rigorous program and we have a high bar for people being able to drive them. And then pumping operations. And so you'll see people out not only Wednesday nights, but on the weekends out doing pump training. Doug Stevenson's kind of spearheaded a lot of that. So a lot of that's going on, and it's we can talk about budgets a little bit later, but it's good. Part of it creates a really nice spirit in the department, which is positive. Everybody can see how they move forward, and everybody is moving forward. So in terms of officers, I promoted Matthew Spadek to captain, and he's kind of reinvigorated the training program, especially on Wednesday nights. David Newman is a second lieutenant now, and he has a lot of expertise in compliance, and that's a big help. He's also working on facilities issues. Robert Koning remains as a lieutenant. He, maintains our vehicles and does an excellent job of it. We have he's invaluable. Bert Rubenstein, everybody knows. I mean, he kind of fills every void and sees needs and fills them in the department. So he's our EMS coordinator and deputy chief. Of course, in December, we'll lose him as deputy chief.
But he will stay with us, right?
He will stay with us as EMS coordinator, and I will also probably have him do some of the continue to work with administrative and some of our IT issues. So, you know, I have a plan in place for promotion, and kind of, I'm not just looking at what we do in December, but more kind of what we're going to do for the next 5 years in terms of officers and all. And I think we're in a reasonable place there, in terms of making all the pieces fit together. One of the things been a real pleasure working this job is working with other towns, with other departments is what I meant to say. So police, you know, financial, working with, she's not here anymore, Priscilla's been great. Council on Aging, DPW, all the town departments, they've been great to work with. So that's been great. So I'm expecting my people in my department to take up training big time, and I've tried to show them the way. So I'm now a certified chief. I'm a certified fire protection officer. I'm hopefully walking the walk as well. We have a firefighter and a very rigorous, the Firefighter 1-2 program is a very rigorous program, especially for, you know, basically we're doing this on a volunteer basis, the time they put into it. So she's there, she has a 6-month-old baby, she's there Tuesdays and Thursday nights and most weekends for quite a few months, many months. I don't remember whether it's 6 months or something in that range. In Stowe, yeah, Stowe Fire Academy. We have 2 members who are planning to do it in the spring. We have a firefighter who just took a 60-hour motor pump operator course. One of the things that doing this helps, and also in terms of some of what our outreach to other towns helps is, you know, we're pretty inwardly focused, and we have high bar on what we do. And it's, you know, we're can be often self-critical and all. The person who came back from the motor pump operator course, 60 hours of this very advanced course, came back with, you know, a couple of real big takeaways. One of them is we do a darn good job of taking care of our equipment, because he saw a bunch of other equipment, and what we're doing in terms of pump operations is spot on, and we have very good and rigorous program. So there's something you learn in terms of the technology, but there's also something you learn as you realize, oh, we are pretty good. We do a pretty good job here. We do a pretty good service, and we should be proud of what we do. There's an element of that that's also a good part of the learning. Yeah, and people are taking 1-day, 2-day courses at the Fire Academy outside of what we're doing. So I mentioned that from a budget perspective, additional training costs are going to be difficult to absorb, but it's essential for a sustainable department. We're looking for efficiencies anywhere we can, and we're hoping that we'll be able to do that. One of the examples, you know, of something that's just a hard cost is, you know, it's going to cost $11,000 to put 7 people through an EMT course. Is it worth it? I think anybody would say if we want a sustainable department, it's absolutely worth it. We can't continue to burn out our people. So, you know, we're working through that, and we will, again, you know, I'm taking a budget I was handed, and we're making the best of it, and we're hoping that we can continue to do that. We have also had a lot of outreach to other towns. So we're engaged within our town in a lot of the activities in the town, and that's been great. Outside of the town, even going to parades and things. You know, you go to a parade and they invite you in for a barbecue afterwards. This is actually really good things to do. You know, we were over at Massport and finding out, oh, they have 1,000 gallons of Class B foam. You know, we have no reason to have a Class B foam set up of that size here. But boy, if we had a tanker problem, we'd need it. And if we called it from the district, it would take an hour. or it's right here in Massport. And, you know, we're friendly with them at this point, and they're happy to send it over mutual aid. So, you know, learning those things, getting that outreach, it's been good. There's numbers of ways in which departments have helped us, and there's ways that we've helped other departments. We're getting back on the running cards and stuff for mutual aid, especially for their unhydrated areas. We can be a big help to them. So all of that, I think, is very positive. One of the things I do want to point out, just because it's, you know, an ethics issue, is according to our ethics training, our administrative assistant, for her to be an EMT, I should notify you. So you've been notified she would like to be an EMT. She's in the course right now. And
Why would you need to notify us?
if you do two positions within the same department, it's an ethics issue that you need to notify your Board of Selectmen.
Oh, she has two positions she has two positions.
She would have
Right,
two
okay.
positions once we hire her. And it's not that there is an ethics issue, it's that I need to let you know, and so that you can understand that there isn't an ethics issue.
Why isn't every firefighter who's an EMT in that same situation?
Not been considered that way. I guess because it's a very different, administrative, a very different kind of position. That if she were to then be controlling her paychecks, for example, or something like that, it would be an issue. But in our department, the way we handle things, that's just not the way it works.
So we should probably just document that in some way that we've been informed, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I have that in your little letter so that you have that. The other thing, not any ethics rules, but I just should notify you that we've hired my daughter as an EMT. And that she's, you know, we have enough people doing enough things that, you know, deputy chief can handle anything that has to do with her employment. So I think it's a very positive thing, and hopefully other people can do the same thing in terms of it being a family activity, a family commitment.
Family that EMTs.
Yeah, that's right.
So Brian, one of the other things that we had talked about with Chief Flannery, and we talked with you throughout the hiring process, was the difficulty because we had so many auxiliary firefighters and not regular firefighters, and so you talked a little bit about the officers, but could you talk a little bit about what you've done there as well?
So, two pieces to it. One of them is that what we call a firefighter means you have to be proficient in operating every truck we have. And the big skill there's a skill to driving a big truck. There's also huge skills to running a pump. So when you have a mile of 5-inch hose, if you do a gallon per foot, and you think about the weight that's coming, you don't just close a valve, right? I mean, there are lots of things that have to do with that we need to learn. So it's a very high bar for us to be at that level of what we call a firefighter. What it ends up meaning is that we have a few people who are at that level. We are training a whole lot more people to be at that level. But it ends up that your firefighters operate the trucks and your auxiliaries fight fires, because they're the ones going and fighting fires. So part of that, it doesn't make sense in two ways. One is that your auxiliaries are fighting fires, and they are obviously firefighters if that's what they're doing. But the other thing is we didn't have a good way to make a distinction between auxiliaries and firefighters. Or somebody who should be going in and fighting a fire, and somebody who just walked through the door and needs to be trained and is useful on the fire ground, but maybe not at the end of a nozzle. So the goal we're having and what we're working toward is having a position called operator, so that you have auxiliaries, you have firefighters, you have operators, and you have officers. And that's the direction we're going. And there will be some distinction made at that point. You know, for example, when you go mutual aid, they expect all of those people to be ready to go run a building. Well, then auxiliaries maybe are not the people you send mutual aid. So we'll have to do some work like that. It seems to make a lot of sense. We're going that direction. So there's two pieces to it. One is that we're training everybody to a higher level, everybody who is there, but also to start making distinctions so that you can, you know, obviously people who are there for 10 years and are still called auxiliaries, you know, that's silly as well. They should be firefighters because that's what they're doing. Questions?
Any questions?
Sounds like you're doing lots.
I think I've spoken enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we have a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the department, and it's, we're doing a lot more things in-house that we used to outsource, which is one where we're trying to have efficiencies. There's a lot of volunteering going on, but, and there are a lot of things that we're doing to make it more sustainable, but in the short term, obviously, we're trying to make it work while we get from here to there. Obviously, we have to expect several people to leave a year, and just because of age or moving away. We've had a couple of people move away who continue to be on the department, which is incredible.
I think a couple people come back too, right?
Yeah. Oh, we've had several, yeah. Several people come back, and part of that is, that's part of our training crew. They were very experienced people that are coming back and helping us do the training. But then we have people somebody who lives in New Hampshire now who works out of our kitchen because he can do that. The other thing for him is he's one of our driver trainers, and that gives him the opportunity to come down here and provide driver training to us. And a person who lives in Lowell who similarly works on the station, tries to stay in town, and is providing a huge amount of daytime coverage. So.
Excellent.
Have you had to do much actual runs yourself?
I do. And that's one of our cost savings, so I don't get paid for it. So, and that's not a good model, that's not a good sustainable model,
Run them all and then
But that is true, that for now, that's one of the ways we're gonna get through spending all this money on training and these other things is, yes, I'm picking up a lot of these things. Is it a sustainable thing that we should be doing this in 5 years? No. So I'm working, trying to get us to the point where that's not what we're doing. The last month and a half, I've not done so many calls with a broken leg. I'm starting to do more now. I got scolded today when I went into the doctor, but that was a bit of a trouble.
Slow you down a tad.
All right, I have to ask, how did you break your leg?
I was returning a piece of equipment to the school, and I got away from the people was working with and started to fall on me, and I got myself out of the way. But I'm not sure whether it hit my leg or whether I just twisted, which happened, but broken fibula. So.
And still he works on.
So I
Great.
think there were some, there was some discussions and we've had some comments about the budget. And I talked about that with Brian and maybe you could talk a little bit about that, but just, it seemed like what had happened was with Bert in an interim role, he wasn't, feeling like, well, why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, so we were, nothing negative about it, we were in neutral for a while, so we were in neutral, things would break, oh, well, should we get new airbags? Yes, they're 35 years old, yes, 3 of them popped, we can't depend on the one that we have left. Should we be doing this? They cost a lot of money, but on the other hand, does any department that has car accidents not have airbags or something, way you lift a vehicle to get, anyway, or anything very heavy. So it took, me coming in to say, yes, this is our strategic direction. We're going to invest in these things where you need to repair the following things. It's not worth repairing this. It would be, this is 35 years old. It would be better to replace it. Those kinds of things. And so once you start making those choices, then you need to start pulling the trigger and doing it. Part of it is I knew we were going to spend a lot of money on training this year, so I was trying to catch up as much of that as we could in last year's budget, where people had done so much volunteer work and we had so few people doing the job of so many that we did have some money we could use for that, for doing that. But we caught up a lot of our backlog in a short period of time so that we could have our breathing room to try to concentrate on training this year.
I think one of the things we've always said, and I know we said it to you, we said it to David, is, in hiring people create a problem. But the other thing I would say is, don't go over your budget unless you let us know before you're gonna
Right.
go over your budget.
Right.
Don't put us in a
Don't put it
situation where
afterwards.
don't put us in a situation where we have to say yes.
Right.
Just let us know, keep us informed, so that we can help, so we can decide the priority based upon other things.
Right. So I've done some back of the envelope, calculation. The only really hard thing that just was not in my budget at all is obviously the EMT class. The other things were partially in the budget, but we're gonna, we're doing phenomenally more, a larger amount of training than we were doing before. We also, we're doing more EMS runs. Means we get more income, but that income doesn't go direct into our budget, right? It goes into something different, and eventually it goes into our budget, very indirectly. So it's gonna be an interesting time coming. We'll be sliding into the end, but I'm gonna do the best we can. Part of it is, I'm notifying you that we are spending more money in certain areas than we had budgeted, and we will.
Yeah,
Hopefully, we have some savings in other areas, but
just let us know if it's gonna go
Right,
over.
right. The thing that I'm hoping, because we did a lot of moving around, is I'm hoping we come in for the first time in many years closer to our vehicle repair budget. And we've done a lot of things to do that, but part of that was we moved money. We did some things last calendar year that we would have done this calendar year, and that's not a sustainable thing going forward either. I mean, that gets us through this year, but next year, that doesn't keep on buying us anything. So, yes. In terms of notifying you, I'll discuss with you how and when, and, because it's hard to know early. I know what we're spending, but it's hard to know exactly where we are not gonna have surprises, or we will have surprises, and
I just think that the process.
one good fire can make a difference and
Yeah,
all that.
I just think the process is, I think that the official process is that you would let us know, and then we would say yes or no, and then we would let the FinCom know, just give them the heads up that we're gonna go under budget. Is that right, Tim?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, to let
So
them
we
know.
just, I think we just officially need to say, okay.
So, I make every effort to work with what we have, and that's what you'll see down there. We're trying to make really good use of what we have before we start asking for more. We'll see
And we're
how
gonna
that
start, doing a better job allocating in the budget, like when this budget comes in, it will be,
works. We're gonna try, but again, to be honest with you, it's gonna take 3 years before I'm good at that, right? Because things are going in many different directions. So, are we gonna do an EMT class every year where I'm gonna pay for seven people to go through? Maybe not. So, but we're gonna, yes, can work on getting there. But in many ways, after you've been in neutral, getting into gear, it's gonna take some momentum and all before we work that out. We'll do the best we can for next year. I can't say that it's gonna come in perfectly either.
better would be good.
Yes. Work on it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate
Very
what
good.
you're doing.
I do like that noon whistle.
There you go. And thank you for the, supporting the tower and being so supportive of us and our needs. We kind of have a patched together technology that kind of works for us, but it doesn't work at all for mutual aid, at all. And the problem is, right now, our procedures are, when something big happens, we switch over to the system that doesn't work very well. So this will hopefully fix that, and I really appreciate that, you've supported us all the way through the process of doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 7:45, almost. Review and approve the SMART, or Change and Throw Evaluation and Implementation Study. So, Tim.
We had a meeting with our municipal coordinator from DEP, Julia Green, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Barney was involved in that, and Gary Davis as well, and myself. And what came out of that meeting was that Julia agreed to put together a draft scope of work for the grant-funded study that they would work with us on, for the town, investigating the economics of pay-as-you-throw and other, opportunities to make changes at the transfer station and the way we operate there, and fees, and really look at a lot of different things that could be done there. So this is kind of the first crack at that, and I don't know, Barney, if you want to jump in, but this is an attempt to kind of describe where we've been in recent years and what the town is looking at, and it's, at this point, it's not an endorsement of any particular solution or technology, but a commitment that we will study these issues and going forward, form a plan to make changes that we think are wise, that can increase efficiencies at the transfer station and, do things smarter in some ways, because we've been doing things the same way for a long time, and that's not necessarily the wisest path, so.
Okay, so then by June of next year, we should have theoretically, well, we have a report. Question is, will we have any action, or is it just a report? I guess it's just the report.
Well, I think it's gonna suggest implementation strategies. If
Okay.
the town decides to go with a pay-as-you-throw system, for instance, if the board decides that that's the path we're gonna follow, there'll be recommendations to put that into effect. I don't know if town meeting action would be required for that. I've seen it done in other places, and it really was on the initiative of the Board of Selectmen. It didn't require a town meeting vote, except for the budget of the DPW, the transfer station. But the decision to operate in a certain manner is really the Board of Selectmen's decision to make. But before we enter into the study, I think we'd want to agree that these are the things we want them to help us study. If there's anything there we're not comfortable with, we shouldn't commit to evaluating it, I would think, unless it's something that we're prepared to go forward with if all signs are positive and it makes economic sense.
Who's on the working group?
Right now, it's Gary, Nathan and Barney. Gary, was there someone else at that meeting with us?
Lana.
Lana Zamaro.
Recycling
Yes,
committee.
right.
Yeah. But I think there was a suggestion, where is it? Here, at
Oh, for
the.
Finance
like,
committee member?
4 paragraphs down on the front page, that there'd be a
Board of Health,
working group that would include the town administrator, public works, health agent, member of the FinCom, and a
Yes,
member of
yeah.
the household recycling
Yes,
committee.
I agree. I think that's really important to have FinCom
Yeah,
and health agent for the heart.
And there's BOS there as well. So,
Or could be member of the Board of Health, maybe,
Yeah.
if it's easier, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
if I may, I think what I would like to do is have us have the opportunity of maybe Tim and Barney and Lana and I taking another stab at this. I think this is a little bit different than where we thought it was going to go, in my opinion. If I read this, it's very much how would we implement pay-as-you-throw? And we kind of went through that last year. And the committee came back with some things that we could do. And what I would like to do is just reword this in a way that it's a little bit clearer that we really are looking at a lot of alternatives, and that pay-as-you-throw isn't necessarily a given. It may be one of the end out points. I realize that this woman, Julie, it's really her job is to
Right.
get pay-as-you-throw because,
Well, we did explain
That's
that
what
to
she
her, that the town wasn't necessarily sold on that as a solution, and that we
right, so I just think
wanted
I'd
to
like
investigate
to,
it.
so
but not-
what makes me worried, right, is, and I was talking about this with Barney, is if, we explained that to her, that this is what we wanted, and we ended up with this, which is very pay-as-you-throw. And so, what would the report be, right? If if we wanted something broader and what we got was pay-as-you-throw, if we go with this, what we're gonna get is pay-as-you-throw. And so what I like to do is just have an opportunity to try to rework this to see if we can get it a little bit more broadened and have things like, pay-as-you-throw would be, as the state would define it, would be a pretty major transformation, right? Like the swap shed would probably need to go, and,
See where that's a foregone conclusion.
I don't know,
I
right?
mean,
And
I
so,
use pay-as-you-throw in Rockport, and I can tell you, they have 3 swap sheds. They have one for books, one for furniture, and one for tchotchkes.
okay, so,
Well,
Yeah.
It's the official
I would
name.
like to
But
just.
it's the official
Yeah, it
name,
should be.
yes. So, I mean, I hate for people to be talking about, that way, because I think that poisons the well before you even get to study it.
Okay. So I'll stand corrected on that, but I think still, that there was a list of things that the Household Recycling Committee came back with, and I would just like to make sure that those things are in here. And that we're not going, this is, what this states is that it's pay-as-you-throw in conjunction with other things. So what we need to assume is what we're gonna get back is pay-as-you-throw.
Although I would say, and we've already talked about this a little bit, but I think Julia is here to help us work through this. And so I think we can shape exactly what it is we want her to research and prepare, ideas for how you would do it. And so I think it may look that way. I mean, I can see how you'd read this that it would look like it's really just about getting pay-as-you-throw through here. But I do think, at least my take on that first discussion we had with her was that, I mean, we talked about a lot of other ideas. And if they don't appear to be in here, then that's something we can definitely change, I think, and add in so that she's clear that she's looking at, I mean, we talked quite a bit about the construction and debris
Mattresses.
section, and we talked about, the electronics and what cost that is to us to dispose of electronics, and I don't know if we talked specifically about the swap shed, I can't remember, but,
The mattress grant, I think.
that's right, and getting a grant, right, for the disposable mattresses, there's a program for that, and, so anyway, I do think that, it's a good idea to, take a look at it, and if there are specific places where we want to make sure other things are looked at, that we can do that.
Well, in fact, I think it says it right here, and deliver, after the first task.
For the deliverable,
For the
yeah.
deliverable, draft design for Carlisle's smart pay-as-you-throw program, including potential changes to transfer station operations, new waste reduction strategies, fee structure, estimated program impacts, and financial projections. I don't think that maybe, maybe what we should say is draft design for Carlisle waste program, I mean, maybe, I'm wondering if you're reacting to all this smart pay-as-you-throw. It's in there in big letters everywhere.
Smart pay-as-you-throw in here. And-
Yeah,
Yeah, if you go down to task 3, it says implement the program.
Right.
Right.
Developing.
Right, and the program is
It's smart
pay-as-you-throw.
pay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's just what, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this, I'm just saying what I'd like to do is have an opportunity to broaden the scope of this as, I wasn't unfortunately at that meeting, but, as was discussed at the meeting, just to make sure that it is in fact broad, and we haven't entered into agreement with the state that
Right.
isn't broad, and we can't broaden it.
Right, yeah, that there's no expectation that we have to do this at the end of this, that they're gonna do the in-kind support, right? I do think this is great, though, in the respect that we're gonna be getting a lot of information that we
Yeah.
don't have.
Yeah.
Because right now, I mean, we've been kicking it
Subtasks.
around for years. Well, how much does it really cost? And
Yeah.
how much is the construction and demolition dumpster? And what if we just got rid of that? This should hopefully be thorough enough to cover all of that. And then, Yeah, maybe that, yeah, we can pick a few things and we don't have to implement a pay-as-you-throw, right? We just,
Right.
we have a few things that people have to pay for. So, getting information is never a bad thing. I just, my concern, and it may be unfounded, is that, if we do ask the state for this assistance, is their expectation that we go pay-as-you-throw at the end? And if they don't, is there gonna be, not necessarily repercussions, but are they gonna be irked, to put it politely? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is their expectation that we will implement the plan that they come up
Yeah.
with, as long as it makes, financial sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Right, and this report does get filed with Mass DEP. The
Yeah, I
conclusion
see
of
that.
her, whatever deliverable she gives to us in terms of a report is also filed with Mass DEP. I did not get the sense, I don't know about you, Tim, but I didn't get the sense in that conversation with her that there, let me put it another way. I thought we were quite clear about the fact that we are not ready as a town to implement pay-as-you-throw, even if we
Right.
had a very clear plan for it.
Oh, okay.
That there's a lot more education and discussion that would need to happen.
Well, and you're right, it was a much broader discussion, and I agree
Yes.
that this looks very narrowly
Yeah.
focused, and
Right.
it doesn't really reflect what we talked about, so
Yeah.
we probably should take another shot at.
That's just what I was reacting to after, hearing what was going on there. And-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think also, and I'd love to be a part of this, and hopefully something won't come up at work this time. But, what they're saying is that it's in the format of the Mass DEP report, just another town's report.
What does SMRT stand for?
It stands for Save Money and Reduce Trash.
Ah,
It's in the
okay.
third paragraph down.
Okay, there it is,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
But I guess it's a standard format, maybe we could just see in other towns.
Yeah, she had a lot of information on other towns
Yeah.
that had implemented different
That's good.
things,
That's-
yeah.
that's- that's-
But
that's
we
a
can
good- that's a
definitely
good
get
point,
some of
Lisa.
that, yeah, yeah,
Thank you for bringing that up.
yeah,
So we should schedule another working group meeting?
yeah, yeah.
And we don't need
Yeah,
help
I don't know,
from
do we need
DEP
to
on
have
this, right?
approval to, no, if it's a working group, we
Just
can
us,
just
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I think we'd
Right.
meet with
Or
her,
with-
right? Are we meeting?
Well, that's what I was asking, do you
Or
want
maybe
Julia
we
to be
could meet
part of
and
this,
then
or do you
meet-
want?
We could meet and kind of talk about what we might be asking her,
And then meet-
because I think what we want in the end is an updated one of these, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so maybe we could meet, if we could get like a sample report,
Okay,
we could meet and then kind of discuss how we might broaden this, and then talk to her about how we might broaden it.
okay.
Yeah, a lot of this is
Set that
probably
up.
very standardized, right? I mean,
Yeah,
probably
that-
goes
that
through
kinda
the
looks
places
boilerplate.
Carlisle with.
I think it- yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, but also just in general, and we have very specific things that we want with Carlisle, so if we call it out.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
yeah. I was impressed, though, with the subtask, because that was a lot of information that we don't have.
Exactly, yeah, which I think
That
is
was
great.
certainly something I want.
It's gonna be awesome information to get.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to add to Tim's thing, while we don't necessarily have to bring this to the town, I like my head on my shoulders, so I think we probably should have informational sessions, because,
Yes.
Yeah.
this is gonna be very contentious.
Yeah,
And,
You mean if we go pay as you throw?
Yeah, if we start looking in that direction, yeah.
or even,
Especially if you move the
I
transfer
mean,
station to Westford
even if we
Road.
start charging seriously for, the construction debris.
Right.
And
Or
instead of
TVs.
letting most people
Yeah,
just bring in a little pickup truck and dump it whenever they want to, that we actually, you have to pay every time you want to dump something in that bin.
Right,
Or similarly, if you want to drop off electronics, you're going to pay for it.
right.
Right, before you even consider pay-as-you-throw. I mean, there's a lot of money we're spending to take people's stuff, and then we cart it off to the
Right.
relevant place, and,
And there are alternatives even to that. I mean, some towns have electronics recycling day, like hazardous
Yeah,
waste day.
exactly.
Yes.
where-
Exactly.
yes.
Where you pay something
Right.
for it.
Well, you may.
Sometimes.
In some cases, the companies come in, because they use all that stuff.
Right.
They'll bring a truck in and just collect everything
Yeah.
in one shot. It doesn't
Yeah.
cost them a lot of money, and then no charge.
Right.
And the other thing about this is that there are pots of money available at the state level to help with some of these things. So Tim mentioned that there's some sort of a program where you can, if you set it up so that you can collect mattresses, there's a place, is it UTEC?
It's
Somebody,
in Lowell, yeah.
yeah, somebody takes the mattresses,
Recycles
so
the mattresses,
anyway, you
yeah.
get a grant, you can get a little grant from the state to set that up. Anyway, that kind of stuff is also, she would have the
Yeah.
ability to steer us toward that.
Yeah, and I'd say Gary was, I wouldn't say he was enthusiastic, but he was not displeased by the meeting. And
No.
he felt like we talked
Yeah.
about a lot of good things.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
All right, so we're agreed, we're gonna
Okay,
go
good.
ahead and have the working group convene,
I'll-
and
yeah,
then
I'll
we'll,
send some
let-
dates
maybe
around.
a smaller group connect with Julia and redo this.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Discussion of the results of the special town meeting.
Everything passed.
Yay,
Everything passed,
including the amendment.
Including the amendment.
yeah. And so Priscilla and I are working with our financial advisor to do the borrowing. We're going to have a bond anticipation note authorization in November, and it's going to include this new tower along with funding for a few other projects that, including one is the police station, which I think we had anticipated there'd be some need for funds that would be spent in the next few months on the
Yes.
police station. That might not be the case, so
I don't think
maybe
it's the case
we
anymore.
don't want to include that in this particular borrowing. Maybe we'd want to do it in the spring or at a
Spring.
future date, but that's underway. And we're still waiting to hear on the DEP, the appeal of the CONSCOM's order of conditions on the,
Yes,
we
that'd be
can't,
nice for
can't
them.
go forward with that site until we get to kind of the all clear on that, but otherwise it's, it's gonna start moving pretty quickly, I think. And I guess, well, the Benfield experiment was pretty much successful, I guess.
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
Well, we certainly got a
It's
good
a-
turnout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, and I think there's a way, Wayne was saying today, I saw an email, there's a way to reduce the delay on the,
Yeah.
That was tough, yeah.
that was a
yeah,
little
that was
tough, yeah.
kind of the only hiccup, but,
Yeah.
so,
Got to hear him twice.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
heard from, I heard from Maureen Deary, who was the
oh,
Yes,
yeah.
I got
the
it.
designated
Copy of that, yeah.
moderator down there, that the people that attended really appreciated it.
Yeah.
They were really glad to
Good.
be able to be there and be part of it and to be able to vote.
Yeah.
And apparently they also had some questions, but that were answered, so they didn't have to
Didn't have to.
ask, go to the microphone. Wow, now we're half an
Now
hour
we're
ahead of
cooking
schedule.
along, yeah.
Okay.
And here comes our favorite part of the
Your
agenda.
favorite part of the agenda, the policies.
I don't think we need 8 or 12.
That's what that's why they're here, because I wanted
Yeah.
no-brainers, and I thought these were no-brainers.
12 is actually just a change to the bylaws, so that should be,
It's-
or the general laws.
It's
that
a
should be in
scenic,
there.
It's not a
it's in the
policy,
bylaw.
right.
It's not a policy,
Right.
Yep.
exactly. And 8,
8 is.
it still has Robert Koenig.
I know, look at this.
It's not how
Bill-
it's reversed or anything. I don't,
You know, I
I
mean,
don't
I
think
think
we
it's
need
totally-
either one of those.
Okay, great, well,
Well, that's just my opinion.
Can,
no, I mean, you want to make that in the form of a, no, we don't need a motion. We just
We
rip those
could-
right out of the policy book,
we
and they're
vote to
gone.
rescind them if they're considered, I don't know.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to rescind policy number 8, Building Inspection Department, and policy number 12, Scenic Roads, as they're no longer applicable.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I will bring you a couple more of those as we go along. So, I'm trying to do the low-hanging
We should
fruit.
keep them somewhere as for posterity.
Yeah.
Historical.
Give them to the Historic Commission.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll get them bound.
All right, and then we have the Insurance Advisory Committee, which we have to get up and running.
Right,
New
right.
finance director now.
Well, right. I think maybe it was the last meeting, we had talked about an employee benefits committee. And as it turns out, the Insurance Advisory Committee would really be the proper vehicle for that.
Yeah.
So I
That's what I
went
was
back, I
thinking.
found a memo that Bonnie had sent to the board back in June that describes statutorily who needs to be on an insurance advisory committee. And you'll see that the finance director is the non-voting chair of that board. So I think now with the finance director, it would be a perfect time to establish that and get representation from the unions and and also non-management employees. And that's the proper vehicle to consider changes in insurance plans and changes in benefits. And so this would be one of the first things we'd take up with Kim when she's on board. And the board, I believe, actually approved this, setting up
We
of
did.
this
We
back in
did.
June. And, with everything that happened, I kind of forgot that we did that, so I did want to point that out.
So, yeah, we'll get that going as soon as Kim gets on board, and it will also be then the one that considers paid family leave and all this other
Right.
kind of thing.
Any kind of,
And we really do need to wrestle this one to the ground sooner rather than later, because I think it's gonna affect our hiring ability as well, because we're way behind the eight ball on that.
Amen. We didn't cover it under special town meeting, but kudos to Luke for a great presentation on the
Oh, yes,
complete
thank
streets.
you.
yeah.
And
Yes.
and there was a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
I figured I'd do
Yes.
that under the liaison.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Perfect.
well, we're up to the town administrator's report.
Okay. I don't know if I should talk about the first
I-
item or
I
not.
think I would not.
don't. I think it might not be as official as I thought
not
it was, so.
Oh, really?
Well, I think it's going to happen, but it
Oh.
hasn't officially
If-
happened, so I don't
She
want to jump the gun.
Well, apparently she was in a corner.
Let's just move on.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Move on. Okay, I've attached the report from the PEG Access Committee, the Concord, the customer survey that they did with Concord and Carlisle residents. I should back up and say I attended the PEG Access Committee's meeting a few weeks ago, representing Carlisle. I think the board had appointed Kerry to that, and then he declined to be part of it, so I went to the meeting last time. But they're going to be presenting the survey results to the Concord Board of Selectmen in a few weeks, but I think, I thought it would be useful for you to see the study. A lot of people, not surprisingly, cable seems to be less and less popular with all the various streaming alternatives that are out there, so the once robust cable revenues that, both towns, a lot of towns have been using, might be kind of going away within the next few years, so.
Although at the rate they're increasing the fees, it
To
probably stays
make up
revenue
the-
neutral.
But I did want you to be aware of that as well. Also, attached to my report, you'll see a proclamation declaring October as Concord Carlisle Community Chess Month. We've done this in years past. And normally the community chess people come in, but I think we've convinced them that the board will vote the proclamation without the presentation necessarily. So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's for your,
so do I have a
action as
motion?
well.
I move that the Board of Selectmen proclaim October as Concord Carlisle Community Chess Month.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
okay. And then not as
Pass
the,
this around and sign it?
No, there's a.
Jen has the original
Okay,
one,
you're all
I
set.
think.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Got it.
And this item's not listed in my report, but I know Nathan wanted to address
Yes.
an item with the
Yeah,
safety
so
committee.
there's two things, if I may. And they're all about if we just skip to the minutes for a second. And the second page of the minutes, it's the Traffic and Pedestrian Safety Committee Charter. We approved this charter. There are two things. One is, I think that for our official charter, we should remove the actual member names, because we don't want to have
Yes.
to update the charter every
Yes.
single time.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that was just kind of, kind of a formatting difference, but I think that one of the other things is that we kind of, when we did the charter and we approved that, we kind of almost assumed that we were appointing the people, but we didn't actually officially
were-
appoint the people.
Right, we were never
So what I would like to do is make a motion that the Board of Selectmen appoint to the Traffic Pedestrian and Safety Committee the following people as voting members: Timothy Goddard, Gary Davis, Lou Coscalillo, Chief John Fisher, Deputy Chief Bert Rubenstein, David Friedman, and Lee Stores. And as non-voting members, Jane Cornell, Annette Lee, and Kathy Keller.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you, no, I was gonna bring that up.
Okay, so the voting on the real charter, it'll say voting members will be town administrator, DPW, one board of selectmen, the
Police
police chief.
Deputy fire
Well,
chief.
doesn't have to be deputy.
Somebody from the fire department,
Somebody
somebody
from
from
the
the
fire department, and
police
two,
department.
Community
and
members.
two, yes, community, the fire department, community, and two communities. Okay. Just wanted to double.
We should
Okay.
probably have it as a police representative too, right?
Yeah, that's
We
what I'm
do.
saying.
We do.
We do? Okay.
John Fisher, yeah.
Yeah, no, but have
Oh,
it
listed, yeah.
instead of
He could,
chief.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
we'll say,
yeah,
it would say
department.
police department
Yeah,
and,
representative.
yeah.
Police
We
department,
won't
fire
specify
department.
No.
chief,
Right,
because he might want to send somebody else.
yeah.
Okay, so, we have a motion on the table, it's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous.
Okay, and just looking at the schedule ahead, for our next meeting, we've got a couple of, we've got a Verizon Eversource poll hearing for Kerr Street, and I think we've also got a National Grid grant of location hearing for Bellows Hills Road, Bellow Hills Road. And,
Oh, again?
which I think that's the same,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
then they kind of dropped the ball months and months ago, and now they're coming back.
okay.
Oh, yeah, you're right, the strike kind of intervened, and
Yeah, and they put this
National
2,000,
Grid.
I thought they put this huge propane tank in. Oh, that wasn't National Grid, it was, yeah,
That
it
was the
was
ho-
the
that's
gas
ho-
company. Yeah, it was. But anyway,
the homeowner, yeah,
Oh, that
did
was the
that.
homeowner,
Yeah,
okay.
they went with that.
yeah.
And also for next time, we plan to have the Personnel Board's recommendations to the board on the FY '21 personnel changes. In November, one of the meetings will have the tax classification hearing. Typically, what we do is schedule it for the first meeting and continue it if it's not ready to go at that time. So if we're not ready to have the hearing on the 12th, we would continue it to the 26th. And then the board canceled the December 24th meeting, since it was Christmas Eve. But then I just wanted to point out that the next meeting after December 10th is scheduled to be January 14th because of the way the calendar runs. So I made a note, maybe we want to move that up to January 7th, because otherwise you'd be going more than a month without a meeting. And,
What
Yeah.
a shame.
well, or not, but just wanted to point out
The
that,
town would fall apart.
It would,
yeah,
especially
Well,
that
that's-
time of year.
Again, we could play that by ear and see,
yeah, we'll see what,
you know,
what's going on.
what's going on.
Town would have a fighting chance if we didn't meet for.
Think of the money they'd take.
That's-
May I just talk just briefly about the October 22nd meeting? So you mentioned there may be the gas one back for Bellows Hill Road?
Yes, yeah.
So one of the things that we had talked about several years ago was that if there's ever going to be something where they are tearing up the road, that we are going to get what is it called?
Bond.
A bond.
Yes.
So if we could, if maybe we could ask Gary ahead of time what he thinks we should be asking for a bond
Okay.
for what it is that they're asking.
Yeah, we can,
Just so we would know approximately,
Yeah.
we learned actually from that company that they're not reliable in fixing the roads.
yeah. no.
That's actually in our policy book, by the way. We already
so
have a
if you-
policy book.
So if we could
We have,
just,
we got the plans, so we can share those with Gary, and
and just so we understand
Yeah.
about what we should be asking for what is it, assurance bond or?
No, it's a
Per-
performance
performance
bond.
bond?
Performance bond, yeah.
yeah, or
Yeah.
cash account or something.
And I'm assuming that if we approve it, we will be asking for the bond, so we just need to know what the number is before the
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, too, what we did in the past was, after the train wreck on Concord Road, right? We asked them to come back, and they came in, and we specified exactly what we wanted. A lot of times they just try to fill a strip. I
Yes.
wonder if we can actually request, curb to curb, you know,
Yeah.
20 feet before, 20 feet after, you know, and really have that more as a policy or a standard as opposed to,
I think it isn't policy, I'm just gonna look it up here.
yeah.
'Cause,
We certainly have a performance bond, I think.
Yes,
I
there's
think
definitely the
what we decided
performance.
was that, you know, that, I'm not sure that we were gonna, like, state what we need, because, I mean, what we actually should have asked for was to
Number
the center of the road,
26.
right? Because then it would even be clearer what they did wrong, and so we'd be
Yeah.
able to prove it better.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is just with, you know, like with the Concord, this was when Bill was on, and I think that was his suggestion. We just have a standard, you know, curb to curb, you know, certain distance before, certain distance after. And we just kind of make it known that that's what we're always going to
Yeah.
ask for. you
Yeah,
know?
put it in the approval, right?
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, because they're gonna have the trucks there. It's cheap for them to do. I mean, they repaved that entire section, you know, and the guy didn't bat an eye, you know, I mean, to do,
Well, it's because they did such a poor job.
well, to a point, but yeah, but I think, you know, we start kind of standardizing that, you know, just make them known that they're gonna have to do it.
Did they just disappear? I mean, they were supposed to just be waiting over the winter and then get back to us.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it was the labor strike that kind of,
Yeah.
they sort of ceased operations for a number of months for any
So, I
application.
mean, is that a dead issue, or can we still say, hey, you need to fix this road?
Well, I think it's fair game to bring that up at the hearing.
Yeah,
Any issues you've got with the utility, because they want to get this permit,
Because
so.
it's
Okay.
really,
Yeah.
really bad.
so I don't think you can ask them to do, you know, if they're just doing, let's say, 1.5 foot trench, you can't ask them to do 20 feet of road. You know, 20 foot wide, curb to curb.
Yeah, no, I think that's why I was saying, I think that there are times when we may just do to the center of the road.
Yeah.
Or even, I mean,
Yes,
they
however,
maybe on front of
what-
it, just, all they
Yes.
was just a gas shut off.
Uh-huh.
It's a 2 foot by 2 foot
Right.
patch,
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
you know, it's fine,
Yeah.
but,
Right.
Yeah.
But I think we need to know
Yeah.
how much we're gonna say,
right,
even if it's that, we need to know what we're gonna be asking for.
right, Yeah.
Because they may even do a 2 by 2 foot patch wrong.
yeah. Oh, yes, and they often do.
Well, in fact, I mean, I'm just thinking, back when board days, when we did roads, we had an engineer that would come and test and check the quality of the
Finished
you know,
work.
the finished work.
Huh.
And I'm wondering if that, we should include that. It's not, unfortunately, it's not in here, and maybe we need to hurry up and fix our policy, but,
Like the cost of a peer review or something? to-
yeah.
I think for a major project, but probably not for a 2 by
Not for
2
a patch, yeah.
No, I'm not thinking
Yeah.
about 2 by 2, but for me, but I think that's something we
I was the
certainly.
engineer on that one. I
Maybe
stood
this
and
is the next policy we look at.
said, we need another layer on
Yeah.
This
it.
is coming
Yeah.
up.
I think the performance bond will get us so far.
That's already in the policy.
Yeah.
Just right.
Um,
And this will be our first time testing it, right? Because the other one was going to be on Bingham, no, not Bingham Road. But remember they were gonna put it in, but then it was withdrawn and they,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the other thing too is,
Those fellows are-
you know, does Gary have a list? I mean, I know he has a mental list of roads, you know, when they're gonna be paved and, because that would be helpful in terms of, you know, just letting the public know, right? Yeah, if you're gonna
Right.
if you wanna have something done, your road's gonna be paved in 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, think of doing it now.
He does have such a list, but I think he's reluctant to share it.
Well, he
The
can share it with
utilities
us,
ask every
Jesus.
year for,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, and he responds to them, that these are the roads I'm going to
Yeah.
do, but
Yeah.
there's no reason why the public shouldn't know it.
well, maybe he could just share it with us at least.
Right, well,
So
yeah,
that when
exactly.
when we're
Share it
doing
with
this,
us
we
then.
know.
You know whether it's, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good point.
Right, because if if you know a road's gonna be paved in 6 months and they wanna do it in 10, you go, well, Jesus, you know, let's speed this up or let's figure this out to make it work, because the worst thing
Yeah.
is, you know, I mean, you see it in Boston all the time, nice new road, then they dig it up in 3
Yeah.
months, you go, what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
The Air Force system, fillers and the diggers.
So, Kate, you are right, there was one on Bellows Hill Road, but there was another one on Bingham.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay. Good,
Okay.
good.
All right.
All right.
So,
so,
your favorite liaison reports.
yes.
We did the minutes, right?
No, we
We
haven't.
haven't approved it.
Oh, we didn't?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
You want to
Yeah, we'll do,
Wait and do it next time?
okay.
Okay.
That,
Oh.
that document actually needs to be out of there anyway, right? And as a separate,
Although, I mean, in a way, I don't see why that would have to be changed in those minutes, because that's how they were presented to us, and, I
Will
think
be in
the-
tonight's
the new
minutes,
one's
right.
in tonight.
yeah. No, but I was saying, we got in trouble for having a document that I had presented in the minutes. Are we gonna get in trouble having this document within the minutes and not just listed as a
Attachment.
document that was refreshed, that was reviewed?
Yeah.
Remember that's what
Yeah.
we had to adjust.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't change that.
Well, I'm suggesting that no matter what, we need to change these minutes.
Oh, okay.
Because this was a document that we reviewed,
Yes.
and so it can stay in here, but it also needs to be listed as a document.
Okay, yeah, but I don't think she needs to change the minutes by changing that document, because then the minutes would be incorrect, because that was not the document that we reviewed.
Right.
So I think we're ready to do,
I'm agreeing with you on that part.
okay,
I'm talking about a completely
Okay.
different topic,
Right.
which is the format of the minutes. If you recall, when I presented what I thought should, yeah, when I presented the dissolution of
Yes.
the housing authority, I had a document. That document was put within the minutes,
and it's supposed to.
and in the open meeting thing that was against us, they said, no, you can't put it within the minutes, you have to reference it as a separate document. So this was a separate document.
Okay,
So just add it
Just-
to here. It's fine if it's in here, but
but then also add it.
also add it just to cover
They put the
ourselves.
belt along with the suspenders. Jeez.
So as
Okay.
amended, we can approve them.
All right.
All right, so I move that we accept the minutes of the Board of Selectmen for September 10th, 2019, as amended.
I'm sorry, I just that right up from in front of me.
Luckily, I had the date at least.
Did you second
I
that?
seconded it.
Sorry. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Well, I have a couple
Yeah,
reports.
got
Mine will be
a couple
short.
of juicy ones, huh?
Oh, I don't know. I hope I don't disappoint you.
Sorry about
Just well, Deer Committee, the signs are up. The hunt began on Monday. We had a couple of folks that contacted Deer Committee members, as they should, and said, oh, but you really should have a sign here. And so we've done that. We went out and put up some extra signs, and so far, so good.
Good.
Any deer?
I was gonna say, we got any deer yet?
Well, I do know that one of the hunters that was assigned to Conant near us was out today hunting. I don't know whether he caught
Any
anything or not.
toddlers?
No. And then just I think I sent it to all of you, but the invitation about
Yes.
the meet and greet at my house a week from Sunday, and then it's followed by the public information session that's going to be right here, and I will get you the flyer now that we've passed town meeting. That'll be here from 3 to 4:30, where we'll do sort of a general presentation. We have David Stainbrook from Mass Wildlife, who's there. I love this. Wouldn't you like this title? The Deer and Moose Project Leader. So,
I didn't even know we had
yes.
a project.
yeah. So anyway, but he's the guy that,
Yeah.
knows everything about the region and the deer population and what they're working on and what it should be, et cetera. So, and then we'll just open it up for conversation, so. Quickly on the Housing Trust, Rocky Point is interesting. Thanks to Beverly, Shorey, and then Maureen, who took this on, we've actually connected with the lawyer that represents the bank, and they are interested in us buying the property, or they'd like us to buy it. But when we met, the Housing Trust met, before the five of us were there, no, 3, I guess. You didn't make it, Luke, right? You were traveling, I think,
When
maybe.
was it? Oh, last
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tuesday, yeah, no.
Yeah.
It was in the air.
But we discussed, and this is what Beverly and Town Council are talking about right now, is that we make an offer to the bank that we would run a lottery for them to find a buyer that was qualified, rather than the town somehow getting in the business of purchasing the
Is this the
unit.
time where we need to get to this regional housing consortium or whatever it was that we were talking about that could do some of these functions for us?
Oh,
Yeah, but we don't have that, it might be something, we don't have that agreement with them.
Well, I
Right,
mean,
so-
at least it's a tangible, not tangible.
It's a really
but-
good example of what we could
of
use them
What we could
for.
use them for.
Yes,
so maybe we need to bring that up again at the trust,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And figure
I think,
out-
yeah,
Conversation,
I think our next step
Because-
was to talk to Tom, right, about how we might go about doing that.
Right,
and what
right. So
we
what,
could legally
we're,
do.
short
and-
run, we're gonna
Yes,
figure
okay.
out what the legal
Okay. No.
way of doing that might be if we wanted to pursue that. The Board of Health is having their follow-up with Giffey and the others from Benfield on Thursday, and we will see how much progress they've made on their list. The trust decided that we would wait till after that meeting. We are definitely trying to develop a strategy for addressing some of the maintenance issues that don't fall under the Board of Health. But because the most urgent thing is the septic and water issues, we want to make sure Board of Health can focus on that. And then we want to meet with, have some kind of a, sort of a coordinating group that would be Board of Health and the Housing Trust, and who else did we say would be part of that discussion? The
building
building
inspector.
inspector, yeah. And then to make sure we're coordinated, if we go ahead as a housing
Assessors.
trust, pardon?
Did you mention the assessors?
The assessor, no,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, and the
Right,
assessors.
because they issued the abatement, for $4,000 just recently, this past, I'm not sure
That was a
exactly when.
settlement. That was an out-of-court settlement, 'cause
Yeah. So, anyway, we are solely moving ahead on the Benfield maintenance issues. And then on the master plan, we have the first meeting of the full advisory committee. Forgotten I think it's next week. Maybe it's tomorrow night. I can't remember. It's on my calendar.
I know.
So many meetings.
It's on my calendar.
Yeah. But,
Thank God for
I will-
reminders.
yeah, the Civic Moxie, the firm we hired is gonna come, and they've got a scope of work, and we're starting to look at who they're gonna interview and what kind of public meetings they're gonna be, and sort of get a whole schedule established, so that's moving ahead slowly. And then finally, I wanted to say around the school committee, Scott, representing the FinCom, put together a small meeting that included me as the liaison. Luke wasn't able to make that, with Supre and the superintendent. And for the school committee, blanking on his name.
Dave
Yeah,
Modell?
Dave Modell, thank you. And we just had a preliminary conversation about their thoughts about next year's budget, and it was a good discussion, and I think we made clear some of the concerns, but also they have made a few adjustments in terms of the whole languages teacher and the gym teacher, because we had 2 retirements. And so they've brought the people they've hired are not coming on as full EFTs. So, anyway, I think there's a clear understanding about where we are as a town and the need to really tighten belts, and it was a good, productive conversation.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Any other liaison reports?
Well, I have the complete streets thing, but.
Yeah, well, we've done.
Yeah, I think he got it. I mean, I think Brian stole my thunder today. I'm meeting with the Energy Task Force next week. That's what I have.
Okay.
The Board of Health's gonna meet this week, so I'll be there.
Okay. Then there's the Municipal Facilities Committee, who opened the subcontractor bids for the police department, and it was 3/4 of the budget.
The
for-
bids we got?
Yeah, so we canceled the GC bids. So that is being reassessed. Similar thing happened apparently at the school for their performing arts thing.
Hmm.
The first time they had no bids, and the second time they had, high bids this way, and then the third time they had high bids the other way, and anyway, things are really difficult right now. What we're hoping, we've discussed, but trying to hold the line on the budget, some of the things that are making the budget go up for the building are deferred maintenance items. For instance, the addressable fire alarm should have probably had replaced already. And then there's a broken HVAC, so apparently the part of the building has not been
Ventilated?
ventilated.
Oh, geez. This is the
So,
police or-
what I'm hoping is that we can shift some of those expenses to some of the maintenance pockets of money rather than the capital improvement, because it's throwing everything is just off, so, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's just
it's-
really, really important, and I know that I've said this a dozen times. It's just really important that if we've scoped something for the town and gotten money for that for the town, if something radically changes there, I think we kind of need to go back to the town, right? And
Yeah.
so, and I know that this isn't what's being.
Actually, this was not in the scope, original scope. It was after the scope was done that they discovered that they had to.
Yeah,
do this.
so I guess,
Part of the problem.
my point is just that, in past projects, what we've tended to want to do is just say, okay, well, that came in, so let's do this in phases. But what we actually had done initially was said, we're going to get this, and then we have to go back and get more money for something else. I think it's so much better just to be transparent.
Oh,
And,
I agree.
just say, okay, oops, and start over again, rather than start spending some of the money, and then go back to town.
Well, that's why we canceled the
Let me-
bid, because we're not even
yeah,
starting.
And then go back to town
yeah.
for more money. I just think
So-
it's disingenuous.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting that that's what you're doing. It's
We're
just a
not,
good time for me to bring it
absolutely
up.
not doing that. But I don't know if this project's gonna get off the ground. And then
It may be that it just can't. It's just too expensive, right?
it might be, I don't know, I hate to say that.
And, maybe we have to look at other alternatives.
Right,
I
yeah,
mean,
it's-
and
it's a
frankly,
take a step back and
personally,
rethink.
as a member of the Municipal Facilities Committee, I'm not willing to spend any more than what we've already asked for on a 10-year solution.
Right.
Mhm. Right. I mean,
So
that's what we
that's why
presented
I'm
it as.
holding that,
And-
yeah, exactly.
And that gets back to
And
my
that gets-
point, is this is how we
Exactly.
described it.
On the other hand, we also have been neglecting the maintenance of our buildings, and we hopefully are going to have a maintenance thing. So some of this, I think, legitimately was maintenance.
Mhm.
And we should be able to do some maintenance projects as well as that rebuilding
Or
project.
just don't give them any heat.
Yeah, right,
Yeah, we start looking at the numbers again, right, and it might be that, okay, yeah, there's another couple $100,000 for maintenance here, plus the, what, 2 million or 3 million that the whole thing was gonna cost in phases anyway, and then you've got the fire department, and I know Brian's pulling a lot together there, but ultimately that building is going to become
Well,
a problem.
and that's, frankly, it's already a problem. The fire
Right.
department's already a problem. We have a lot of ADA issues that
Right.
need to be addressed, which the Municipal Facilities Committee was hoping to solve with the trailer. And as far as I'm understanding, Chief Saros is not in
No.
favor of a trailer.
Right.
So.
Put that in his report. yeah.
I think,
I think you and I need to talk about it.
I think we need to talk about these things, because it's, you know, we have the town has liability issues that we cannot bury our head in the sand and A, not address, and B, you know,
Yeah, I think we just need to get alignment and figure out who's on first where.
Yeah.
And just to make sure we're all firing on the same cylinders. I think that
Yeah.
there's a misunderstanding as to who's on first where, and we just need to realign and then start moving forward
that would be
again.
very nice. I'd be happy to get that done.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a
You know,
fixable thing.
Yeah, you know,
And we need to stop using those engineers.
Yeah.
well, I'm not.
Or forcing the engineers to say what we want them to say.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, I think it's the opposite. I mean, are you talking about the,
The engineering firm that did the police station review, because they're the ones that did the school, and there were a number of issues that were missed there as well.
yeah,
Well,
I'm
but-
not pleased
but-
with them at all.
No.
Yeah, but
Um,
they did come back with a much higher number. And we did try to pare it down, and perhaps we just pared it down in the wrong way.
For the,
For the
Police.
police department.
yeah, in fact, we're pairing again. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going back again to see if we can
Yeah.
pair it yet again, and but
I think one of the questions we may want to ask, though, is, you know, the value of what we're getting for paring it back even further, for what you were saying is a 10-year building, should we, and I realize it's a very expensive thing, but should we be considering a new building somewhere?
Yeah.
That's a combined
Okay,
building.
and then there's the other
Right, that's a
tension
combined
is
building.
what we actually need for health, safety, and welfare, and what the police chief would like, would wants, which may not necessarily be all health, safety, it may be other things, and that,
Yeah, I mean, I think
puts
he's
the
going
municipal-
for what he can for his
exactly,
his group, right?
and you, I understand, but that unfortunately, the Municipal Facilities Committee is trying to hold the line against all these wants from everybody, and they don't necessarily have all the authority they need. So I think, I think I keep on telling them, we need to have a joint meeting, the Selectmen and the Municipal Facilities Committee, so that we are all also on the same page, so that they feel that they
Right.
have support, because they're trying to not let all these wants get away with everybody.
Yeah, I think there's two things that happen, at least what I've discovered in my professional career, is once you start working at these things, there's two things that happen. One is, well, there's actually many things that happen. One is because you talked about it, they think you're gonna fix it.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily,
Yes.
isn't necessarily true.
Yes.
The other thing is that everybody just starts running to you and they think that you can fix it right away. But then also, the group itself just wants to fix all the problems. Like, you identify all the problems and you're just like, well, we have to fix them all. There's still a priority
Yeah,
problem.
well, I would say
And so
in this case-
even though there's
It's not the
priorities
case.
in multiple places.
Yes,
We have to prioritize some priorities over other priorities.
right, well,
Right.
You know, because we can't do it all
They
at
can't all
once.
be the
I would
top
say in the
priority.
case of the MFC, we're looking at health, safety, welfare, and liability. Those are our first
Right,
priorities.
and we probably can't do all of those.
And some of them we might be forced to if we don't get them done, or at least show some progress towards getting them done, because we are open to liability. That's what we're trying to focus on.
Just won't arrest anybody.
Then don't identify those.
I'm not. You notice I didn't go further, did I?
Anyway, let's chat.
Yeah. Let us. That's it for me.
Or Luke, did you want to say something about just sort of some of the input you got last night?
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
We had put together a presentation, outlining, proposed changes for complete streets, and I think we made it clear that there are certain things that are safety related that will not be changed. And they're not open for debate, but there are a number of other things. So, some individuals did bring up some good points, with some of the crosswalks moving, it'll change, the way kids walk, and we need to think about putting crosswalks in other places. Also too, I don't remember his name, the crossing guard. Ruben, yeah,
Yeah,
he brought up.
he was vocal.
Yeah, he brought up a number of points on how the students come down and
Yeah.
which directions they travel in. And, I'll pay a visit at some point. I mean, I've been there when the kids are coming, because I've picked my kids up there. And it really is kind of a mass of kids. I think a lot of it is gonna be change of habit, or you just gotta get kids to?
Yeah, on the other hand, I also looked at it today, and that idea of that line of sight where he can actually anticipate the kids getting to him, and if he's down further, he can't see them, that, I can understand his nervousness about that,
Yeah.
so.
You know, there was also a comment about, you know, there are those parking spaces along the side of the library now.
Oh.
You know, turning that into a walkway, or an area for the kids, so they're already on that side?
I have a solution, though, just suddenly occurred to me. Instead of having people enter the library that direction, have them
You could
enter
have them go the other way. Right, yeah,
That would solve
so,
that whole problem.
right, so there
Okay, well.
there are a number of solutions. No, it would still be there. It would just be the other way.
We
Instead-
would just,
the
it's
exit would
one
turn
way,
into the
one, in
entrance.
one direction, we would make it one way in the other direction. So that people would be turning into the driveway where the children are not. And they would be coming out of the parking lot where they're going much slower and have a chance to,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That would solve that problem.
Yeah, yeah, one of the things that, kind of as it went on, signage was
Yes.
a major discussion, and I think, you know, HISCOM was kind of unfairly targeted as being the reason that there isn't signage there. You know, I know some of the past history, but what's gonna have to happen is as this progresses, so we wanted a conceptual plan of exactly what's gonna happen. And now the next steps are, you know, we need to determine what the signage would be. You know, we'll have to bring it to Historical Commission for discussion and ultimately approval. And it was just almost like a foregone conclusion that they were not gonna approve any sort of signage at all. But,
Oh,
you know,
really?
yeah, well, it was, were you still there at that point when?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
But-
And then I
but-
walked out with an lead, so.
Yeah, so I think what's gonna have to happen though is, you know, we, and I talked with David Freeman, and I don't think he got in touch with you, but the next step is to really reach out to Nitch and say, okay, you know, what sort of signage needs to be done in order to make it effective when people are coming into the Rotary, exiting the Rotary, trying to
Yeah.
use the crosswalks, really making it safe for everybody. And, you know, and then bring that to Historical Commission and see what they say, right? You know, you can't say that they're gonna deny it before they've even had a chance to look at it. And then, you know, we go from there. If it does end up being something that, you know, they think is too much, then, you know, it's a discussion that we have. But that has to be presented before we can rule one way or the other. But a lot of good comments. I think the feedback was generally positive. People are supportive of the project. Some people want more done, which will be additional phases, but the support was pretty strong, so. And people are definitely passionate about safety, so.
Yeah.
Yes, especially there. where
Yeah.
all the children are.
Right,
Yeah.
right, so,
And the bikes and the,
yeah,
lots of conflicts.
right. So, but no, it was good. It was a good first session, and we plan to have at least one, probably two more. We encourage people to come and discuss.
Oh, cemetery.
Does that mean we have to have one or two more
Was last
special
time.
town meetings?
Typo last time.
Oh, sorry.
Thank God.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
Yes.
did,
Thanks.
yeah. You didn't shoot anybody or anything?
No, I try not to. Usually doesn't get you votes, so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But depending on, I guess depending on who you shoot, it may get your vote, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes, I better watch out.
Yeah, yeah, you're 100 votes right there.
Yeah. Okay,
That
well,
message was clear.
unless somebody else has something else to say.
I do.
it's-
I move adjournment.
There we go.
Second.
Oh, you beat me to it. Well said, well said.
Wow.
Yeah, way before
Look at that.
9:30.
This actually offsets last night.
Well,
A little bit.
You
A
wanna
bit,
vote?
yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna vote with our feet.
a little bit 3:30.
I don't think, thank you very much for all those who were watching and listening. All those in
So we
favor?
can say hi to
Aye.
David
Aye.
and Ed, because they're the two that are watching.